EarthBound is an amazing RPG with an even more amazing speedrunning community. Since the mid-2000s, people have been working to beat this game as quickly as they can, with strategies eventually making the run a complete mess compared to a casual playthrough. Times in the present day have come down to well under an hour for the any % no debug menu category, showing how far the run has come over the years. Back in the day though, there was no other way to speedrun besides beating the game legit, without the use of glitches. Of course, it wasn't long before a few people made some insane discoveries that broke EarthBound wide open. In this series, we take a look at pivotal moments in speedrunning history where RPGs had their runs changed forever, and the people who made it happen. I'm Dr. Swellman, and I hope you all are having an awesome day. Back in the year 2005, speedrunning was centralized in a few main hubs on the internet. One of these was Speed Demos Archive, which focused on runs done by people on official hardware, either in a single sitting or in segments over time. The other was TAS Videos, which focused on tool-assisted speedruns, where people could use an emulator to play a game frame by frame, reaching levels of perfection not possible by a real human. Discussion about making a TAS of EarthBound really started in June of 2005, with a user by the name of Halamantariel taking on the run when he got done with his Illusion of Gaia TAS. Over the next week or so, Hal was making some good progress, already beating the first major boss of the game. That would change going into July though, with him doing a complete 180 and dropping the TAS for the foreseeable future. His reasoning was simply that he didn't have the patience to continue with the run, mentioning that manipulating every fight he'd get into was too much. When it came to SDA, potential runners were already devising routes for EarthBound, with a published run being highly requested by folks that frequented other RPG threads on the site. Much routing discussion was done by contributors such as Lucid Faya, Mickey Mage, and Evil Ninja, with Ninja actually doing a run and finishing it on June 30th of 2006. He shared his post with a time of about 5 hours and 42 minutes on the last hit of the final boss. The post on screen mentions a different time, but Evil Ninja later clears up his mistake by mentioning he accidentally counted an extra segment that was since removed. Now this run doesn't have much to do with the discoveries that I'm going to be talking about in just a bit, but to understand how impactful they were, we need a reference to what a normal glitchless run would look like. You play as Ness, a boy who finds out that he is destined to save the world from an evil entity named Gaius. In order to do this, you have to visit 8 My Sanctuary locations around the world, collecting melodies within a stone and eventually unlocking your true power. Along the way, you recruit 3 other party members, Paula, Jeff, and Pooh, who help in combat with their various abilities and equipment usage. Once you collect the 8 melodies, travel to Magicant and defeat Ness's nightmare, all you need to do is head to the Cave of the Past and defeat Gygus to finish the game. Looking back at Evil Ninja's run, it seemed like it was just a more optimized casual playthrough. The game doesn't really pick up until you get Jeff, who is a complete monster when it comes to dealing single target damage. Most of the damage output in the run comes from consumable items such as super bombs, which all characters can use, and bottle rockets that only Jeff can use. These items pretty much carry you through the game with how broken they are. PSI abilities from Paula and Pooh also add to this damage, with them covering situations where your items can't. Offensive equipment will also help as well, but won't have as much impact as your items and abilities. Now this was the first known completed run of EarthBound that had video proof shared on SDA, but the run does not exist today as it was rejected from the site for having too many mistakes. Regardless, people at the time were very happy to see a run completed, and they ended up archiving it through detailed notes in the SDA forum EarthBound thread. This was an impressive feat, but while people on SDA were routing EarthBound again after Evil Ninja's run was posted, things were also getting interesting back on TAS Videos. But before we talk about that, I want to tell you about today's sponsor, Crystal of Atlan. Crystal of Atlan is a cross-platform Magipunk MMO action RPG where players can immerse themselves as members of the Thornbird Adventurers Guild and uncover the secrets of the Crystal of Atlan. Atlan is a beautiful floating world of machinery where magic powers everything, and to traverse this world, you have 11 unique classes and characters total that you can play as with no character gacha, all unlocked from the start. I'm personally a big fan of spellcasters and magic builds, so the Magister class is right up my alley. Then, you have 2 branches in each class with over 20 skill combinations. Magister has Elementalist to focus on reducing cooldowns, and Warlock to deal immense damage. Combat against enemies is fluid with multiple outcomes for combos, and there's even an emphasis on using aerial attacks, giving you plenty of options to defeat your enemies. You also have the ability to join up with your friends in content like cooperative dungeons, or you can take on other players in various PvP modes. Crystal of Atlan is available today on iOS, Google Play, PC, and PlayStation 5, and you can get started using the link in the description. There's free rewards with the official launch, and Team Liquid is also having a collab with Crystal of Atlan, bringing even more events and rewards for you to take part in. So download Crystal of Atlan for free today, and embark on your own Magic Punk adventure. Back on TAS videos in late 2006, SNES 9X, the main emulator used for Super Nintendo tool-assisted runs at the time, had an update adding a memory watching feature. This let people look at values in a game's memory while it was running, and this was huge for games like EarthBound. This, combined with other discoveries on how to consistently manipulate luck in the game, pushed Hal to start another EarthBound TAS after he completed his 100% Illusion of Gaia run. By July of 2006, Hal, along with another TASer by the name of Nitrodon, was able to have an EarthBound TAS completed and published with a time of 3 hours, 26 minutes, and 9 seconds. This was hours ahead of the run by Evil Ninja, and for good reason. Ninja's run had a lot of mistakes that cost him time, with most of these being from random encounters and bad luck. While this run followed a similar route overall, all aspects of it were manipulated for favorable outcomes. This meant that the TAS's random encounters were all intentional, and with that, there wasn't a need to shop for many items outside of super bombs and bottle rockets. This run surprised many, and news spread quickly about the accomplishment. People not only celebrated on both TAS videos and SDA, but it even reached fan sites such as Starman.net. Now, after big achievements such as these, there's usually a lull period where development slowed down, but the community on SDA was still going strong with trying to improve the run on console. Familiar faces like Nitrodon would show up to provide their input, and new people would also join in on the discussion. One of these people was a user by the name of Flugel. Flugel was providing a ton of advice in the EarthBound SDA thread, sharing optimal strategies he found during his testing and research. A ton of progress was being made on the new route, but in June of 2007, Flugel shared a discovery that made runners question the limits of an EarthBound run. A user on Starman.net by the name of Curry discovered a weird glitch that let them walk through a wall. They described it as spinning around like crazy next to an edge of a cliff and eventually passing through it. People were quickly able to reproduce the glitch and found other areas such as Peaceful Rest Valley and Lilliput Steps where it could be used. The reason it works is due to how some of the impassable cliff tiles are structured. Looking at the one found in Peaceful Rest Valley as an example, the blue tiles are what you can walk on, and the red tiles are what you can't walk on. These impassable tiles are usually enough to keep Ness from going into areas not normally accessible, but since these two tiles are connected diagonally, that's where things get busted. If you align Ness's pixels in a way where you can get pushed by the red tile that's next to the blue one of Ness's subpixels can get through the barrier, and thus he can walk right through. This is made easier by using a skip sandwich, a consumable item that increases your walking speed for a short time. Now, this was a really cool glitch, but there weren't many places where it was useful, and there wasn't much time saved to go along with it. No new runs would come out of this, and it wouldn't be until 2008 before any meaningful activity would pick back up. Challenge playthroughs of EarthBound were actually pretty common at that time, with people having restrictions like not using bottle rockets or anything of the sort. Flugel was doing a solo Paula playthrough where it was possible, and with that came the importance of item management. Paula doesn't have any healing abilities, so Flugel had to be smart about his use of healing items. There would be instances where he had the sunstroke or cold status, and didn't bother removing it. As a result, he was constantly getting low health messages interrupting his gameplay in the overworld. Flugel caught one of these statuses while going through the pyramid in Scaraba, and by complete chance, he got the text box pop up while transitioning to a set of stairs. Once he cleared it, Paula was detached from the stairs and he could walk around. Flugel actually had the forethought to make a save state of this glitch, since he was playing on emulator, and came back to it when he finished the challenge run. He started testing all sorts of things around the glitch, and over the next couple of weeks, Flugel quickly realized something. He accidentally discovered a glitch that was about to completely revolutionize EarthBound TASing. When you interrupt any stairs transition, the game doesn't continue moving you onto the stairs, and you end up in the background of the room. If you move far enough in any direction besides down, you'll end up in another room somewhere else in the game. EarthBound's entire game map is linked together in the game's memory, but not in the way you might think. You could walk out of the graveyard tunnel in Thread and end up at a house in Summers right next door. These rooms start off as being invisible, only showing the black background as you're walking, but this can be fixed by using the Soundstone or going into the map and coming back out, reloading the room. Now, even though the room is loaded back in, you can't interact with anything within them, except for the loading triggers that will move you to the adjacent room, meaning if you could get out of bounds, you could go anywhere you wanted in the game. There was an issue that Flugel was having with the game soft locking at random times, but it turned out that this was caused from walking below the horizontal line of where the stairs glitch was performed. Flugel shared his findings within the EarthBound thread on TAS videos as they came up, saying that he could just walk to Gygus' lair at the end of the game and fight the final boss. This was an insane find, with hours coming off the TAS if someone wanted to do a run with this glitch. Unfortunately, there was a problem. In Phase 3 of the Gygus fight, you have to pray with Paula to deal damage. Each prayer goes to a cutscene that plays out before coming back to the battle and dealing a set amount of damage. In the first cutscene, it would normally show the phase distorter that's used to go to the past, along with Dr. Andonuts and Apple Kid, a couple of supporting characters in the game. The problem is the game hasn't progressed enough to have these characters in Saturn Valley with the phase distorter. After more testing and research from Flugel, Nitrodon, and another user named Electrospector, it was found that a specific event flag has to be set for the Saturn Valley prayer cutscene to go through normally. This flag is set by taking the phase distorters to the Cave of the Past, so you can't just walk to the final boss. This also requires you to have the phase distorter completed with all the relevant NPCs present. Getting the ones you need to Saturn Valley is done by falling down a hole at the end of Lumine Hall, which transitions to Lost Underworld. Then for the phase distorter, it shows up after you beat Ness's Nightmare in the Sea of Eden. The route that Flugel suggested ended up going through the game normally to Thread after you get Jeff, then it gets out of bounds and walks to Summers, all while doing another stairs glitch to walk down to Lumine Hall, dropping into Lost Underworld, death warping back to Thread and doing another stairs glitch to walk into Magicant, finally beating Ness's Nightmare, and doing the final cleanup before fighting Gaius at the end of the game. Over the next couple of months, more people would post small discoveries in the EarthBound TAS thread, eventually leading up to a way to skip the Starman Jr. fight near the beginning of the game. Around this time, another TASer by the name of Gocha would start posting in the EarthBound thread with his own discoveries, not only optimizing the Starman Jr. skip that was just found, but also sharing exactly how the cliff skip glitch worked, which included the explanation and images I talked about earlier. Gocha was helping out a lot, and it seemed like he was going to be the person to take on the creation of a new TAS. However, someone else would come in and tackle the challenge instead. Pirohiko was another Japanese TASer who had a few games under his belt already, such as Dragon Quest III, Kirby Pinball, and Rockman 2. So you know he was about to come in and shake things up. And just a month later in November of 2008, Pirohiko shared that he was working on a new glitch TAS of EarthBound. It wasn't until March of 2009 when Pirohiko would finally come back with the goods. He posted his TAS of EarthBound on his Nico video channel, and the final time was 1 hour and 10 minutes. This was over 2 hours faster than the TAS by Hal and Nitrodon, showing how ridiculous the glitches were that Flugel found just a year before. The route was extremely close to what Flugel theorized as well, with a few big additions to beat the final boss. He beats Ness's Nightmare by using Paula's prayer ability to confuse him and make him use Flash Beta on himself, instantly killing the boss. When Pirohiko gets to the Cave of the Past, he encounters a bionic Kraken and uses Jeff to spy a Gutsy Bat, which has both an incredible attack and gut stat. This lets Pirohiko more easily manipulate smash attacks during the Pokey and Gygus fight, carrying him through both Phase 1 and 2 of the encounter. After that, he just prays with Paula and beats Gygus, making it look incredibly easy. When Pirohiko submitted his run to TAS videos, everyone was blown away. People knew that a glitched run was incoming, but no one could have predicted how crazy it would be and how much of an impact it would have on the future of EarthBound speedrunning. However, this was not the fastest way to beat the game. In fact, a faster way was hiding in plain sight since at least early 2009. In the Thread Circus tent, there's a spot where if you check the area, the game might lag a little bit before displaying the usual "no problem here" message. But sometimes, there will actually be a problem here, and as a result, glitched messages can display. Some of these messages can lead to the game crashing, but there's other weird effects that can happen, with some people saying they could access the game's debug menu. This menu has been known about for a long time, with a group called the Game Genie Code Creators Club sharing a debug menu code back in 1999. But this was the first time anyone was able to access the debug menu without hacking the game, and this was a huge deal. This would eventually draw the attention of another TASer in April of 2010, and his name was MUGG. MUGG was curious about completing the game with the debug menu in Thread, but had no idea how to consistently make it happen. When doing his research, he would note his progress in the EarthBound TAS thread with various applications of the Thread tent glitch. MUGG was eventually able to make the debug menu happen, but the problem was it was wildly inconsistent. It took him nearly a month to get the debug menu to pop up in a TAS setting, and that was only after switching to the Japanese version of the game. This didn't stop MUGG from submitting a TAS on August 30th of 2010, beating the game and completing it with a time of 30 minutes and 42 seconds. The technical aspects of this run are unclear, as the debug menu would show up after about 10,000 frames of alternating between the A and L buttons. In the debug menu, there's a bunch of different options you have access to: adding characters to your party, updating character statuses, and even warping to certain events in the game. Event 70 just so happens to put you in Saturn Valley after defeating Gygus, but without the teleport ability, MUGG would have to somehow walk back to Onett. By setting up a death warp as soon as he got to Saturn Valley, he could continue from a save setup in the Onett drugstore and quickly walk home to finish the game. The run did cause a stir during the judging process, as this was one of the first runs on the site to complete the game by using a debug menu. Conversation in the voting thread became tense, with one user in particular arguing that accessing the debug menu and using it to beat the game was similar to using a cheat code to do the same thing. The debate lasted for nearly 100 posts over the course of an entire month before the TAS was finally published. The decision being based on the idea that memory corruption was used to access the debug menu instead of some type of code or cheat device. Regardless of the debate and how people felt, this run was a huge step forward in EarthBound TASing, and it wouldn't stop there either. Over the course of a few days in December of 2011, MUGG and Pirohiko would eventually come forward with several improvements to the TAS, as Pirohiko found out how to abuse the text-based memory that triggers the debug menu in the Thread tent. This time, a way to access the debug menu was done at the glitched corner in the top right of Onett, removing the need to even leave the city. The credits sequence was also removed, with the run using a very nice Event 69 and warping to the post-credits scene where Picky is banging on the door. The final time for this run ended up being 9 minutes and 1 second, well ahead of what people previously thought was possible. Pirohiko found this method by looking at the game's memory when using the Game Genie code to bring up the debug menu. There are 4 memory addresses that can impact what's happening in the blank glitch text box when it shows up, and these are 7E0073 through 7E0076. If these addresses have values 0A, 00, 80, and C5, the game will pull up the debug menu from the glitch text box. 0073 is a value related to the second player's input, so in order to do this debug menu, MUGG needed to do inputs on 2 controllers at very specific times. First, a button needed to be pressed down on the second controller, then after several frames, the buttons A, B, Y, down, and right needed to be pressed all to set up the memory values for the debug menu to appear. Until very recently, this was actually how EB's debug menu speedrun was performed in real time. Though extremely difficult, it was still possible to do if you set up your inputs correctly. The discussion in the publication thread was overwhelmingly positive, with many happy about the improvement. This looked like it was going to be the fastest way that EarthBound could be beaten, and for some time, people were right. For over a year and a half, the EarthBound TAS thread had very little updates. Most of the original people working on the game moved on, and it seemed like there was nothing left to improve. And then, seemingly out of nowhere, Pirohiko made a post saying he was going to make a new TAS. On October 11th of 2013, just 7 days after he made his post, he would submit a new Mother 2 run to TAS videos, and the time was 4 minutes and 4 seconds. This run was completely different than anything that had come before, so let's break down exactly what happened. For the first 2 minutes and 42 seconds, Pirohiko just plays inputs to the beat of the music. While the inputs are there for entertainment, the wait is entirely purposeful. The in-game frame counter needs to hit a very specific point, all before Pirohiko needs to enter the info needed to start the game. There are 15 categories and memory addresses related to save data. One of these is the frame counter, and the others are related to things like character information, player coordinates, and your favorite thing. After going through the intro sequence, once Ness gets out of bed, the game automatically saves. Pirohiko uses this to perform a subframe reset. Basically, the game's save operation is almost immediate, taking about a frame or a 60th of a second to complete. The complicated part from Pirohiko's perspective is that he has to bypass the game's checksum or validation check that ensures the save file isn't corrupted in some way. The first reset during the save operation was to start the deletion of data since the checksum didn't match up. The second reset was to interrupt the removal of the save data at exactly partway through the overriding of your favorite thing. Once Pirohiko resumes the game after the reset, things really start to break. Since most of the data was deleted from the sound setting all the way up to most of the favorite thing, these values were set back to 0. This included X and Y coordinates, and when those are at 0, 0, it puts you at the top left corner of Tenda Village. Opening the menu in this location will cause a glitched text box, and by doing a specific set of inputs on 2 controllers at the same time, Pirohiko can perform code instructions to reach the to be continued screen at the end of the game, all without a debug menu. This is currently the fastest TAS of EarthBound and Mother 2, a legendary achievement by Pirohiko that has stood the test of time and will likely continue to do so into the far future. The discoveries that Flugel, MUGG, and Pirohiko made have directly impacted the modern community that runs the game in real time. Flugel's documentation of the stairs glitch led to the any % no debug menu speedrun being a possibility, with many runners, including myself, taking on the challenge and beating Gygas in less than 50 minutes. Gocha also came in and documented cliff skips for EarthBound, which made multiple other speedrunning categories possible as well. MUGG and Pirohiko cracked the code on the debug menu speedrun, making it somewhat possible for people to do on console without any cheat codes. And while Pirohiko's save glitch TAS didn't have any implications on the speedrunning community as a whole, it still shows how insane TASes can be from that era of gaming. If you enjoyed this video, go check out some of the videos and resources I linked in the description. Also, thank you all so much for 50,000 subscribers. I can't believe that so many people enjoy the videos, and it means the world that you all stick around and watch. I hope I can still continue to produce content that you all will enjoy. And with that being said, you all stay hydrated, and thank you for watching.